Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are opening up the Playbook to completely demystify complex structured data. We're going to look at exactly how you can claim massive competitive advantages in AI search by getting your advanced schema implemented perfectly. Let's dive right in.
Because look, it's time to stop leaving visual real estate on the table. Schema isn't just some invisible background code that only your devs should care about. It's actively about claiming absolute visual dominance on the search engine results page. When you nail the implementation, Schema generates immediate user trust and sends direct, powerful citation signals right into Google's AI systems. It's literally the difference between blending in as a boring blue link and standing out as the authoritative answer.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the advanced trio. Then, we'll talk about unlocking review stars, moving right into the site link search box, and finally, dominating with video schema.
Okay, Section 1. The advanced trio, course, app, and speakable schema.
So why these three? Because they boast the absolute highest opportunity to competition ratio right now. Most agencies totally overlook them, which hands you a massive first mover advantage. Behind the scenes, Google's AI systems are physically scanning your code to extract the most citation-worthy information they can find. So when you use schemas like Speakable, you're essentially shining a giant digital spotlight on the exact paragraphs that answer a searcher's question. You are handing it over on a silver platter.
But why does it fail so often? Well, here are the most common agency failures we spot during audits. For software application, people default to generic or unsupported app categories instead of using Google's approved vocabulary. For course schema, they hit the basics but totally forget the has course instance logic, which is what actually details the price and dates. And then there's Speakable. Most folks either ignore it entirely or they break the whole thing by using the wrong CSS selectors.
Let's zoom in on that Speakable failure for a second. The biggest mistake you can make is using overly broad, generic selectors, like your standard paragraph or div tags. You definitely don't want to tell Google that every single word on your page is an AI citation, right? Instead, you've got to target the specific CSS classes applied exclusively to your most important direct answer paragraphs. Specificity is the secret ingredient here.
Looking at the required logic for all three, for course, you obviously need the name, description, and provider. But you really want that course instance data. For software application, the approved category and operating system are non-negotiable. And for Speakable, it's all about nailing that CSS selector. The best part of all this? We're not talking about weeks of coding. These fields can typically be knocked out in just 1 to 2 hours per template.
Let's walk through a condensed standard operating procedure for this trio. Step 1 is building out that base entity schema we just talked about. Step 2, for your content clients, is identifying those 2 to 3 incredibly citation-worthy paragraphs. Step 3, add the Speakable entity targeting that specific CSS class. And Step 4, please don't skip this, you must validate. You'll use the rich results test for course and software, but keep in mind that tool doesn't actually support Speakable. For that, you have to use the schema markup validator.
Here's an insider secret that surprises a lot of people. Speakable is one of the most under-implemented schemas in existence. Yet, it's one of the absolute most valuable for AI search. Almost nobody is using it right now. Dropping this into a content strategy gives you an undeniable, massive first-mover advantage.
All right, moving on to Section 2, unlocking review stars.
Aggregate rating is hands down the ultimate click-through rate boosting trust signal, but getting those stars to actually show up on the results page, that can be tricky. Often, developers will just drop the rating in as a standalone entity rather than properly nesting it. Sometimes the review count in the code diverges completely from what's visibly on the page. Other times, reviews get hidden behind third-party JavaScript widgets. And lastly, the absolute biggest killer, self-reviews. This is a crucial point to understand. Google algorithmically suppresses self-reviews. If a business writes reviews about itself on its own website, your code might validate perfectly, but those stars will never, ever appear. The reviews absolutely must come from identifiable third parties, and there's no manual appeal process for this. The algorithm just completely shuts it down.
To actually get this working, you need to follow this logic. First, verify that the reviews render in the actual visible HTML. Second, and this is non-negotiable, nest the aggregate rating inside a supported parent entity like a product, a local business, or a course. Never leave it floating standalone. Third, make sure you include core fields like rating value and best rating. Fourth, guarantee that your review counts update dynamically with your database so they never fall out of sync. And finally, validate that nesting over in the rich results test.
Okay, Section 3, the site links search box. This feature is a massive user experience upgrade that aggressively reinforces your brand's authority right on Google. It lets returning visitors bypass your standard navigation entirely. They can literally type a query right there on the search engine results page, dropping them directly into your site's own internal search results. It dramatically reduces friction. But as always, there are a few pitfalls to watch out for. The most common errors include targeting the wrong search query parameters or relying on an internal search that uses a JavaScript overlay instead of producing a standard shareable URL. But the fatal error, the one we see constantly, is applying website schema to interior pages. Website schema belongs solely on the homepage. If you blast it everywhere, you're just going to confuse the crawler.
Now, the implementation process for this is impressively quick. We're talking maybe 30 minutes. First, just do a search on your own site and check the URL. Find the exact query parameter your internal search is using. Is it an S, a Q, maybe query? Second, place the website schema strictly on the home page. Third, validate that your target template matches that exact parameter. Then, sit back and keep an eye on your Search Console for those impressions.
But here is a very crucial reality check. You can have mathematically perfect code, but the site link search box appearance is entirely Google's decision. Schema just grants you eligibility. Google ultimately decides whether or not to display it based on your site's overall brand authority, organic traffic volume, and entity signals. It's an earned privilege, not a guaranteed deliverable. Finally, Section 4, dominating with video schema.
Video object markup creates a massive visual differentiator in standard text results. Think about it. When you're lost in a sea of plain blue text links, a vibrant video thumbnail is an absolute magnet for clicks. More importantly, if you host your own videos rather than offloading them to YouTube, adding video schema is effectively the only way to make them visible in Google's video search index.
When video-rich results fail, it usually boils down to a few specific diagnostic errors. You might be missing the content URL or embed URL, which basically makes the video invisible to the index, or maybe your devs forgot to format upload dates and durations properly. You absolutely have to use the ISO 8601 format. But the trickiest error by far is relying on default YouTube thumbnail URLs, which Google actually fails to crawl pretty often.
So to ensure Google can properly index your video, stick to this standard operating procedure. First, step away from third-party thumbnails and host your own. Second, add your embed URL for YouTube videos or your direct content URL for self-hosted ones. Third, double-check that ISO formatting for all your dates and times. And fourth, build and submit a dedicated XML video sitemap in Search Console to get that enhanced, rapid discovery.
I want to leave you with a massive takeaway here that will solve so many headaches. Host your own thumbnail. Did you know YouTube thumbnails often fail silently? Google's crawler will encounter throttled or blocked thumbnail URLs from YouTube and simply give up. By generating and hosting your own thumbnail image on your own CDN, you are taking complete control of the crawlability. This single change resolves the absolute most common video-rich result failure mode.
And that brings us to the end of our playbook. You've now seen the exact steps to unlock course, software, Speakable, review star, site links, and video thumbnails. The only question left is this. Which hidden structured data advantage are you going to unlock first to dominate AI search? I challenge you to take this newfound first-mover playbook, get into your code, and immediately claim your visual real estate. Thanks for exploring this with me today.